Megan's message was perfect. This past week, I've actually been super distracted between my truck breaking, them not getting to get to it until I had already gone to Austin and back. The trip to Austin, almost didn't make it because of the rain. I had to trudge through water to get to the front of my neighborhood so that the person giving me a ride could actually pick me up and take me. So I rode all the way to Austin barefoot, stuffing paper towels in my shoes, trying to dry them out before we got there. We get there, and I almost fall out of a 7-story window and at the end of the event because I had just lost my balance, and they had put a curtain up like this, and I thought there was a solid wall behind it. And I'm reaching back trying to find something to stop myself from falling. No, it was just a window. And I was like, well, good thing I just decided to fall here. And then I get back, and work's got everything going on, and I get a wake-up call from one of my managers of like, hey, I haven't been doing what I'm supposed to be doing at work as far as being there for the team. And so I've been distracted with that, and then the enemy started attacking me with depression on that, and I started fighting on it and fighting it and fighting it. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, I was waiting for Megan to say, hey, it's time to go. And she goes, hey, we're preaching in 10 minutes. And that's when I realized I didn't have a message set up. And so on the way here, I'm sitting there praying to God like, okay, it's got to be you. I mean, every week it's you, but this one's got to be you. So what are we talking about? And the whole drive here, this is what he was talking to me about. I have messages. I could have just hip pocketed one of them, and I not necessarily take pride in it, but I'm glad that I have this because this is something that God has called all of us to be. Be prepared. Be prepared to share the gospel, to show Jesus to people. And I've always hey, I've got messages lined out, but God was like, nope, now you know it's me. Put those aside. I was even scrolling through my phone like, was it one of these? And he was like, it's not any of those. Close that off. So what he wanted to talk about was how important it is to take that time so that when something like this happens, when you wake up and you're not prepared, you know that you already have been prepared. I wanted to talk to you guys about the times that Jesus went away to pray. And John's message was perfect last week. I absolutely loved it. It actually reminded me that we had went on a date night with a friend of mine and his wife, and went to Barnes & Noble's. That's mine and Megan's date. We go eat somewhere, usually sushi masa or something of that nature, and then we go to Barnes & Noble. Well, Joe and his wife, Kira, that's their same thing. They'll eat somewhere, and then they'll go to Barnes & Noble or Second & Charles. They'll go to a bookstore. And so, kindred spirits that we were, we all went to Barnes & Noble after we ate. And me and Joe just immediately went to the religion section. We went to the Christianity. And he's a historical nerd. He's I want to learn about history. I want to learn about all these different things. So we just kind of meandered through there, and then we hit the Bible section, and we were talking. And we had talked about how many people would take Scripture out of context and say, I'm trying to think of one now. I can't even think of any of them. But we had talked about Pastor Joby Martin and Tim Tebow had gotten together. And Tim Tebow, for those that do know, was a football player, and now he's a big advocate for child trafficking, such of that nature. And I was listening to a podcast with him and Pastor Joby Martin talking about this and all of the different things and how we're called to work. And he said, I want to get to heaven tired. And me and Joe just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't agree. I don't. Not to say that we shouldn't work, because we are called to work. Paul tells us many times, faith without works is dead. So yes, we do need to work, but I don't believe we need to get to heaven tired. I believe we need to get to heaven with Jesus, leaning into Him. He says, my yoke is light and my burden is easy. So if I'm tired, that means I'm trying to do it myself and I'm not leaning into Him. And Joe was like, yes, finally, someone else. Because everybody else I tell this to is like, no, we got to work. And I'm like, I knew it wasn't right when my flesh was like, yes, that. I was like, okay, that's a big red flag for me. So let's lean into it. And I started looking into the different times that it's accounted in the gospel that Jesus goes away. Luke 5:15 through 16. I'm going to go to these because I can. And it's important. It's very, very important to read your... Huh? Nice. It's very, very important to read the context of it. This is after Jesus had called his first disciples, which is another time he went to pray before that. I'll come to that. But this was right after he healed a leper. Let's start in verse 12. And it happened that while he was in one of the cities, behold, there was a man covered with leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face and begged him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And he stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. And immediately the leprosy left him. He directed him to tell no one, but go and show yourself to the priest and make an offering for your cleansing, just as Moses commanded, a testimony to them. But the news about him was spreading even further, and large crowds gathered to hear him and be healed of their sick. But he himself would often slip away to the desolate regions and pray. And I find this as an interesting thing because when Jesus does his ministry, he doesn't abolish the Old Testament. He doesn't abolish the law. He fulfills it. When he heals this man of leprosy, he goes, yeah, go on, live your life. He goes, no, go do what Moses commanded you to do and show yourself clean. And he started gaining popularity. If you can imagine in this time, there weren't like any real good doctors, so to speak. So if there's an opportunity that you can heal a loved one, I'm going to find him. So you can imagine how popular Jesus became when people started finding out he's healing people. And Jesus didn't bask in this popularity. He went away to pray, to humble himself. He shows this in Mark. I know Megan's loving that. He shows this. This shows. Mark 1:35. Again, right after he heals a mother-in-law, Peter's mother-in-law. Evening came, and after the sun, verse 32. Now when evening came, and after the sun had set, they began to bring to him all who were ill and those who were demon-possessed, and the whole city gathered at the door. And he healed many who were ill with various diseases, cast out many demons, and he was not permitting the demons to speak, because they knew who he was. And in the early morning, while it was still dark, Jesus rose up, went out of the house, and went away to a desolate place, and was praying there. I found this interesting because this morning, last night, sometime between the time I went to sleep, woke up, went back to sleep, woke up, went back to sleep kind of deal, I came across a TikTok that was talking about the 8 hours of sleep thing was made up. It was made up by a mattress company. There's nowhere in all of human history before this time that humans slept 8 hours straight. They slept for 4 hours. They would wake up between 1 and 3, and then they'd go sleep again for another 4 hours. And they called that God's hour, because many times during this 2-hour window, people would get up and pray, write, study, do other things with their wife or husband. But spending time with God, they called it God's hour. They were focused on what God had called for them. And I found that interesting because that's usually about the time I've been waking up. When I've been fighting and battling with sleeplessness, it's usually about 1 o'clock in the morning. And in this moment here, Jesus is doing the same thing. He's waking up early in the morning and he's going to seek God. But yeah, they did that 8-hour study, and it was backed by a mattress company. That's how you kind of know. It's like people are like, oh yeah, backed by a study. Who paid for the study? Mattress company. I wonder why it's about sleep then. Luke 6:12. This is what I was talking about, where Jesus, before he makes a big decision, who he chooses to follow him. It's kind of a big decision. This is actually titled in my Bible, Jesus Appoints the 12. Now when it happened at this time, he went off to the mountain to pray. And he was spending the whole night in prayer to God. I'm going to be honest with y'all, I can't remember a more recent time where I have spent an entire night praying and spending time with God. Can any of y'all? Spending a whole night with him? It's not something I'm proud to say, but I'm brutally honest with everybody. So, but Jesus does it consistently throughout here. And when the day came, after he'd spent his entire night in prayer with his Father, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them who he also named as apostles. And it lists off all of them. Many of these are Jesus after fleeing popularity, out of habit early morning, or after doing something amazing. But it's not only the only times that we are called to actually spend time with God and pray. A prime example of this is Matthew 14, verse 13. And again, out of context, this is right after John the Baptist was beheaded. I'm going to back it up. Verse 6. When Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias, I said that wrong, danced before them and pleased Herod. Herod was the king at the time. What he said goes. So much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. You know, they say a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from others. This is primarily why I never say yes unless there's context. It's like, hey, can I ask you a favor? Depends on the favor. Because Herod said, I will do whatever you want. Now, having been prompted by her mother, she said, give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist. Now, this is a king in front of a large group of people that just promised aloud to this girl, I'll give you whatever you want. It's too late to backtrack. As a king, he has to do what he says. Otherwise, people will see him as not having ultimate authority because now he's backtracking. And although he was grieved, the king commanded it to be given because of his oaths and because of his dinner guests. And he sent and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took away the body and buried it, and they went and reported to Jesus. Now, Jesus and John were very close. They grew up together. So, in verse 13, when Jesus heard about John, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. And when the crowds heard of this, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and felt compassion for them and healed their sick. Jesus went away. He secluded himself. The trick of the enemy, as Megan said, is like if he can't take you out, he'll get you distracted. Many times he'll try to put you in a place of isolation. One of my favorite stories of why this is bad, and I hear this all the time of people like, I don't need to go to church, I've got God. It was a man in the church just stopped coming one Sunday, and the pastor noted it and was like, that's weird, he's not here. And next week, same thing, didn't come. And he had found out that something had happened in his life, and he abandoned the church. Didn't abandon God, but he just didn't want to be at that church. So the pastor went to his house, and he was sitting out on his back porch around a fire. And the pastor just walked up, sat down. The guy was like, nope, I know what you're here to do. You're trying to get me to go back to church. I don't want to hear it. The pastor didn't say a word, and he's just staring at the fire. After a few minutes, he takes a piece of charcoal, it's bright red, hot, out of the fire and sets it off to the side. A few minutes later, that charcoal starts cooling off and goes to black and it goes cool. Pastor then picks it up, throws it back in the fire, and it gets red hot again. And he gets up, pats the guy on his back, and walks off. And as he's walking off, the guy goes, it's a good message, Pastor. As many times we find ourselves when we just want to be away from the church or we want to be away from people. Sometimes it's good when we separate ourselves to get us away from the distractions to seek God. But don't stay there. Staying there is where we lose our cool, or we lose our heat and we start to cool off. It's also when we're most vulnerable. The lions don't go after the herd, they go after the straggler. And the Bible says the enemy walks around roaring like a lion, seeking who he can devour. It's usually the one that's separated. It's good to separate yourself as Jesus has done, but don't stay there. Matthew 14, verse 23. Just a little further down. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he sent the crowds away. And after he had sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. Prime example. Right after feeding the 5,000, a big miracle, a big moment in Jesus' life, separates himself. I found this as a good pattern. I'm really good at picking up patterns. It's helped me throughout life, and a lot of it has helped my faith with God, because I start to see the patterns in God's work. When you start recognizing patterns, you can start seeing God's movement a lot easier too. Doesn't happen by chance. But Jesus always got into a pattern of big thing happen, pray. Before big thing happen, pray. Many times people say, the only thing I can do for you is pray. And that bothered me one day. The Holy Spirit was like, that sounds like a last resort, not a first action. I don't believe that the only thing we can do is pray. I think the best thing we can do is pray. We can fight and fight and fight all we want, but if Jesus is not a part of it, and if it's not in God's plan, it's futile. So the best thing we can do is pray. Pray first. Fight later. There's another one I wanted to talk about. Right before Jesus' temptation. Nope. Yeah. Right before his temptation, big moment. God comes down after getting baptized and says, "This is my son in whom I'm well pleased." And immediately leads him to be tempted. Jesus gets done with the temptation and the angels minister to him. A moment of prayer. But the moment that really kind of solidifies that I know that this is a habit of Jesus's and one that we should all have is Mark 14, verse 32. This was right before a big moment in Jesus' life, and not a good one, some would say, but the greatest one for us. It was right before he gets arrested and hung on the cross. Then they came to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here until I have prayed." And he took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be very distressed and troubled. On a lighter note, Pastor Joby Martin said that he doesn't imagine that Jesus has Peter, James, and John as like his favorites. He imagines them as, I got to keep a closer eye on them. James and John, sons of thunder. Call down thunder on them. I'm here to save the world, and you want me to smite somebody in front of everyone? Peter, we could go on with Peter. He's always opening his mouth and insert foot or doing something he's not supposed to be doing. So I feel like he took them along like, hey, y'all stay here and let me pray. You three, come with me. Yeah. I may be going through something, but I got to keep an eye on you three. Prime example, after this, Peter goes to cut the dude's ear off. Imagine if he hadn't been there, he'd been with the other ones. It might have started a little earlier. But he took them with him, and he said to them, "My soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and keep watch." And when he went a little beyond them, he fell to the ground and began to pray. If it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he was saying, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but you will." And he came and found them sleeping and said to Peter, "Simon, are you sleeping? Can you not keep watch for 1 hour? Keep watching and praying, that you may not come into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed and said the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. And he came the third time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough, the hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us go. Behold, the one who betrays me is at hand." Jesus knew that this moment was coming, which is why he was praying these things. And he took the time to set himself aside and pray to God and be openly, brutally honest with him. "Father, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think anybody in here is lining up and volunteering to get beaten and hung on a cross." Jesus knew, though, that that was the will of his Father, and he knew that that was something that he needed to get done in order for him to fulfill God's will. And he took the time to pray beforehand. Finally, in Mark 6, verse 31 through 32. Too far. This is again after the beheading of John the Baptist, and this is when I know this is what really kind of solidified and wrapped everything together, is to when we're covered with distractions, when we're facing adversity, when we're coming off of a great miracle, when we're coming off of a great victory, our habit should be to pray. Verse 30, and the apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. For there were many people coming and going, and they did not have enough time to eat. And when they went away in the boat to a desolate place by themselves. God has called us to seek after him, to take the time to separate ourselves from the distractions, to put our phones down, to get away from the technology, to get away from the distractions, to get away from people calling, asking for things. I heard someone say, that's kind of rude of Jesus, feeding the 5,000 and then just leaving. Like, what if there was more people? Jesus was also human. We do get tired. We need that rest. We need that time to recharge. I've said this a lot, especially to Megan, because she just pours and pours and pours into everyone around her and never takes the time to fill up her own. But you cannot fill somebody else's cup up if yours is empty. It's important to take the time to recharge yourself, to refill yourself. And the best way to refill yourself, the best thing to refill yourself with, is with God. So take the time to take your time to seclude yourself, to separate yourself, not from everyone in the church, but from this distractions of this life, and seek after him. Spend that night in prayer. And if you wake up at 1 o'clock, don't get mad at me. It's a lie. There's no 8 hours of sleep. It's 4 and 4, and then there's a time for God. If you wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's the best time to pray. That's God saying, hey, I remember the first time it happened, I was praying to God, and I said, Lord, give me more time. Give me more time to seek after you, to seek what you have for me. And that's when I started waking up at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's not what I meant. I meant like get some of the other things out of my life. It's like, no, you asked for it. And yes, I will testify. Megan's prayers, very powerful, will get answered. And it's usually painful for me when they do. But I'm very thankful that she does pray for me. But I want to thank each of y'all for being here today and stress the importance of being prepared by being in prayer. That's the title, by the way, Be Prepared by Being in Prayer.